I was rejected for my skin color, but the truth about my father changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced as I stood in front of that glass door, the chill of the winter air biting at my face. It was supposed to be just an interview. Instead, it was a gut punch I never saw coming. The words stung with the sharpness of broken glass. We've decided to go in another direction. Just like that. My skin color was the unspoken reason. I felt it everywhere: the tension in the room, the murmurs behind the receptionist's desk, the discomfort of my own reflection staring back at me, vibrant yet out of place. As the elevator doors closed, I could feel the weight of rejection clinging to my shoulders. Tears pooled in my eyes, a stinging reminder that here, in this city of dreams, I was the wrong shade. My hands trembled as I pressed against the cool metal, praying the tears wouldn't fall until I was safely outside. I thought of my mother, her unwavering support, her warm hugs that could chase away the coldest nights. And my father was the spark of mystery in my life. He left when I was just a baby. I never knew him, yet he loomed large in my imagination. Every Sunday, I'd flipped through his old photo albums, searching for hints of who he was. Eyes like deep wells, shadows of secrets hidden beneath his stunning smile. Mom always avoided my questions, her expression tightening, a storm cloud on her face. She'd say, "You'll understand one day." But I was hungry for answers, craving the truth. That night, after the crushing rejection, I went home and stared at the walls, the silence echoing like a siren song. What happened to my father? Was he ashamed of us? Of me? The questions clawed at my insides, twisting like knives. I paced the dim living room, flipping through those photos again. And then, something caught my eye: a note tucked between the pages. My breath quickened that I could hardly believe my eyes. It was a strange message, scrawled in a hurried hand. It felt like a jigsaw piece that didn't belong. Find me where the shadows dance. What did that mean? My heart raced, pounding like a drum in my chest. Every nerve tingled with anticipation. Shadows dancing. Was it a riddle? Hope sparked in my chest. Could this lead me to him? But then a chill crept over me. What if it didn't? What if digging deeper uncovered something darker about him, about me? I hugged the note against my chest, fear and curiosity warring inside me. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air in my small apartment felt thicker than usual, the echoes of my heartache and confusion layering themselves like heavy blankets. The note, with its cryptic message, sat like a heavy stone in my palm. I glanced at the photos of my father scattered across the table, faces frozen in time, but now they seemed to hold deeper meanings than the smiles and laughter captured within their frames. Where the shadows dance. I whispered the words, feeling them pulse through the stillness of the room. I knew those words were a call to adventure mixed with trepidation, promising answers but also potential pain. What shadows did they refer to? Were they places or emotions? The city felt so vast, like an ever-shifting tapestry of experiences and stories, yet so intimately confined to my struggles. Days turned into nights tangled in frustration and longing. I found myself more withdrawn, the rejection still gnawing at my confidence. Each time I reached for new job listings, I imagined the crinkle of disapproving brows somewhere beneath the corporate veneer. I sensed the unseen hands that pushed me aside. Despite the anguish, I continued to remind myself of the flicker of hope ignited by the note. I could not let this settle into despair. I had to move forward. It was while I was out on one of my long, aimless walks, aimlessly wandering as I worked through my thoughts, that a stranger changed the course of my day. A light snow was beginning to fall, dusting the edges of the pavement like powdered sugar, when I saw an elderly man struggling with his shopping bags outside a small grocery store. Something stirred within me, an unexpected determination. My legs took me forward before my mind could register the moment. "Excuse me, sir. Can I help you with that?" I offered, feeling oddly buoyed by the warmth of generosity pooling in my chest. The man looked up, surprise washing over his face like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Oh, thank you." The bag seemed lighter in my mind, but reality has a heavy way of reminding you how old you are. He chuckled softly. As I reached out for the bags, he continued. "You know, sometimes life just takes a bit of kindness to remind us we're not alone." His words moved through me like a balm, offering a sense of connection as we walked the short distance to his apartment. After helping him sort the groceries, I allowed myself to be swept up in a conversation that revealed a tapestry of experiences: loss, joy, and the indomitable spirit of resilience. "Life has a way of turning shadows into light if you let it," he said, scanning my face for understanding. "What weighs you down might just be a stepping stone to something greater." I felt the tears threaten again, this time not from pain, but from the sheer unexpected kindness of a stranger. It created a crack in my hardened shell, an opening to faith I had thought lost. "Thank you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You don't know how much those words mean to me." As I left the elderly man's apartment, my heart felt a little less burdensome. Maybe that flicker of hope wasn't as faint as I thought. Maybe, just maybe, finding the truth about my father wasn't just about the answers, it was about the journey, about who I could become along the way. Back at home, I could not shake the feeling of urgency that pulled at me to decode the note. I began to research every place where shadows danced, leading me down winding paths of art, music, and history throughout the city. I spent sleepless nights searching through archives and old records, piecing hints together, until I stumbled across the name of a small jazz club known for its shadowy corners and sultry performances, a place my father once played. A blend of excitement and dread began to depain a final piece of potential truth, separated from me by the distance of time and fear. I stood in front of the club the next evening, the neon lights shimmering against the light snowfall, an intoxicating mixture of anticipation and anxiety swirling inside me. The sound of music spilled out onto the street, weaving a fabric of connection that tied me to the whispers of my past. I took a step forward when a voice behind me broke the spell. "Excuse me, but you're not thinking of going in there, are you?" I turned, breath hitching as I met the eyes of a familiar face, me mother, her expression a blend of worry and determination. "Mom." I breathed, caught off guard, and it struck me how there was so much left unsaid between us. "Promise me you'll be careful. Please," she implored, her voice steady yet trembling, as if the weight of our unspoken truths hung heavily between us like a phantom. The finality of her words, the warning not to breach unvoiced burdens, sent a ripple of fear throughout me. This was not just about finding my father, it had become a reckoning. The shadow of something greater loomed as uncertainty danced, leaving me torn between uncovering the truth and respecting the silence shrouding my family. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, the hurt bleeding through the cracks. But the look she gave me held a multitude of secrets too complicated, too heavy for me to grasp. As the music reached a crescendo behind me, my heart pounded louder, echoing my desperate need to uncover the truth. With every breath, I could feel my resolve melting into doubt. I knew the answer awaited me inside that club, but at what cost? And as I stepped forward, leaving the threshold of safety behind, I caught only the shimmering flicker of hope lighting the way, the door closing behind me like the final note of a lost song. The moment I stepped inside the jazz club, the air thickened, vibrant yet suffocating, an intoxicating concoction of nostalgia and raw emotion. The warm, amber light danced around the room, illuminating faces etched with stories, secrets, and a shared connection to music. All around me, the low hum of conversations mingled with the sultry notes of a saxophone crying out in expressive sorrow. It felt like the very shadows whispered my name, urging me deeper into their embrace. I glimpsed the band on stage, a mix of young talent and seasoned musicians, each lost in their own lyrical reverie. My father's presence loomed in the corners of my mind, a ghost intertwined with melodies that echoed off the walls. I clenched my hands together, biting back the swell of emotion. This wasn't just about music, it was a pursuit of identity, a search not just for answers but for pieces of myself I didn't yet know were missing. Can I get you something? A voice broke through my reverie, and I turned to find a bartender, his face familiar, somehow warm and inviting among the haze of uncertainty. Just water, please, I managed to say, my voice shaky, holding on to the fragile thread of courage that had brought me this far. Sure thing, he replied, a kind smile lighting up his features before he disappeared briefly into the crowd. As the music rose to a gentle swell and the bartender returned with my drink, a rush of noise enveloped Malauter, clinking glasses, snippets of stories bubbling up like champagne. I took a small sip, savoring the coolness, but felt the warmth of the atmosphere beckoning me towards something mysterious, perhaps even dangerous. That I spotted a table in the corner, its shadowy alcove feeling like an invitation to unravel both the past and my present. But as I moved toward it, another figure snagged my attention, a woman at the bar, her back to me, clad in a striking red dress that hugged her figure, her long hair cascading down her shoulders. Instinctively, I felt drawn to her, a peculiar pull, as if she held a secret that intertwined with my own. Before I could think better of it, I approached her, the hesitations that gripped my heart loosening just enough for spontaneity to lead the way. "Excuse me," I began, my voice surprisingly steady, "do you come here often?" She turned slowly, her sharp features illuminated in the dim light, and for a moment, I lost my breath. Her eyes were a striking shade of green, veils of emotion swirling behind them, unreadable and deep. She studied me for a heartbeat longer than necessary, tilting her head slightly as if assessing whether I was friend or foe. "Not as often as I should," she replied, a playful smirk touching her lips. "The music here pulls you in, doesn't it?" "Like a sleepy embrace." "Yeah," I said, unable to keep myself from smiling back. "I guess you could say I needed that kind of embrace tonight." "Something on your mind?" she asked gently, the corner of her mouth quirking up as if she could see the layers I wore like armor. The instinct to divulge the whirlwind of my thoughts flickered, but I held back, masking my tumult under a thin veil of courtesy. "Just family stuff. You know how it is." Her expression shifted slightly, a flicker of understanding crossing her face. "Family can be complicated. Sometimes it helps to step into someone else's shoes to see a broader picture, don't you think?" The weight of her words wrapped around me, encouraging me to dig deeper. In between sips of water, we began to share fragments of our lives, her stories of loss and resilience sprinkling moments of hope amidst the darkness. I was caught in her rhythm, longing to stay in this bubble of connection, but beyond the music, the realization that the ever-elusive truth about my father lingered like a distant melody in my mind nagged at me. I needed answers. I almost wanted to pull away from this newfound connection, to tread carefully through the ideas of relationship when my heart was so precariously tethered to the past. "Are you enjoying the performance?" she asked, her gaze turning toward the musicians taking control of the stage. "More than I imagined," I admitted, swallowing hard. "It feels like home in a way I didn't expect." At that moment, the first notes of a ballad flowed like silk through the club, serenading the dim light cradling us. "This sonnet reminds me of something important," I whispered, glancing toward her, a rush of vulnerability coursing through me. "It feels alive, like it's telling a story. A forgotten one." She met my eyes, a flicker of intrigue sparking between us. "Every song has a history. Just like every person." Suddenly, I felt an undeniable urge to reveal the crumbled edges of my heart's turmoil, but my impulse was shattered by a loud crash. A glass had been dropped across the room, sending startled gasps afloat like bubbles bursting amid calm waters. As heads turned to investigate, I caught a glimpse of movement through the crowd, a man, one who looked alarmingly familiar, his face etched with concern, scanning for someone, and I felt my pulse quicken. Then it hit me like a thunderclap. Resembled my father. The contours of his face mirrored the pictures I had seen yet never had the courage to confront, the only things keeping my mother's secret safe. My heart plummeted, tangled with shock and a whirlpool of questions. Was it even possible? "Are you okay?" the woman beside me asked, her warm presence reminding me I wasn't in this alone. "I think I need to go," I choked out, staring wild-eyed at the man still searching, my heart battling against my better instincts. I need to know. As I pushed through the maze of bodies, the realization settled over me like a heavy cloak. This journey was twisting into a tempest, leading me towards something I thought I was prepared for but now sensed might be greater than I ever anticipated. The shadows were thickening, and there was no turning back now. My father could be just beyond the threshold, and with every step, the depth of my resolve was intertwining with a simmering fear of what revealing the truth could mean for everything I believed, and as I stepped toward him, uncertain if this was destiny or disaster, all I could hear was the pulse of music fading behind me, a haunting, fading farewell. The glow of the stage lights flickered behind me as I strained to catch another glimpse of the man who might be my father. My heart thundered in my chest, each beat a reminder of all the unspoken questions that had haunted me for years. Should I approach him? Was it wise to disturb whatever serenity had settled into this fleeting moment? I pushed those thoughts aside, caught in the whirlpool of faces, sounds, and memories that the jazz club had invoked. As I emerged from the crowd, the sharp scent of polished wood and aged spirits filled the air, mingling with the undercurrents of sweat and spilled drinks. I could glimpse him now, the way his frame shifted nervously as if he were wrestling with ghosts just like I was. But was he searching for someone? Was he even aware that what lay between us, tethered by blood, could still be as fragile as it was real? Hey, are you sure you're okay? The woman in the red dress voice broke through my daze, her hand brushing my arm lightly. I turned to her, startled. The kindness in her eyes radiated warmth, dissolving the edges of my anxiety, but it wasn't enough to shift my focus back to anything but the man who loomed ahead. That I can't just walk away. She supplied, soft yet insistent, as if sensing the hesitation shaping my every movement. You don't have to do this alone. You've just opened up a door to a shadowy past, why not have someone by your side? Her words hung in the air, an unexpected offer, a lifeline thrown into a turbulent sea. Moments like this were few and far between. In my world defined by solitude and heavy secrets, her genuine offer felt like a rare melody playing just for me. Okay, I whispered, tentatively allowing her to guide me through the shifting layers of the crowd. I turned back to her, feeling the weight of the decision hanging in the air. But if that's him, he'll be right here, she promised firmly, a solemnity maturing in her voice. When we finally broke into the open space before the bar, I felt exposed, raw, my breath catching in my throat. I could not shake the image of him, neither fully a stranger nor a long-lost part of my existence. As I approached, it became clear that he was indeed searching for something more than just the warm light of the club. It was as if he were clawing through the fog of his own past. "Excuse me," I called out, my voice trembling with urgency. He turned slowly, eyes widening as they fell upon me. Shock adorned his features, yet beneath the surprise was something different, fear and uncertainty mingling with the astonishment, a reflection of my own internal storm. Words failed me initially, a flock of emotions tightening my throat. "Who are you?" With an almost imperceptible gesture, he stepped closer, his face betraying the tension that had taken hold of him. I was looking for someone," he stammered, the friendly exterior crumbling beneath the weight of unspoken revelations that at me. The words slipped out before I could think them through, sharp and full of bitter hope. His gaze searched mine, and for a heartbeat, memories of a younger version of him flickered in his eyes. A man in a fedora, laughter that echoed under the stars, and music entwined in our blood. "Two neat answers," I pressed, a lump forming in my throat, shaking off the final threads of uncertainty. "You've always been there, just not in the way I expected." The silence stretched, thickening the air around us. Did he feel the weight of all those years lost? Did he carry the ghosts of our unmade stories as I did? Before he could respond, I caught movement in my periphery. The woman in red stepped forward, an oasis amidst this desert of questions. "Can we talk?" she asked softly, not breaking the tension but extending a hand toward us both like a bridge over a chasm. Her kindness disarmed me. Maybe this encounter was meant to be more than a confrontation, maybe it could spiral into something transformative. I cast a hesitant glance at the man before me. "Together?" The silence squeezed my heart as he nodded, uncertainty painted across his features. And as we took our first steps together, there came a sudden crash from the back of the club, a sudden commotion breaking the fragile thread of our moment. My breath hitched again at the sound, a jolt of foreboding kissing the edges of my courage. It was as if destiny itself were carrying a warning that all was not right. A figure darted through the chaos, a spark of urgency on their face. Just as quickly, a voice rose above the turmoil, shrill and demanding, "They're here. We need to leave, now." I turned back to my father, and that single moment of eye contact ignited everything brewing inside me. Frustration, fear, and a newfound ownership of vulnerability collided, leaving me breathless. Whatever truths lay obscured by the storms of past decisions were hanging in the air, threatening to be swept away as uncertainty multiplied before us. "Wait." I gasped, but it was too late. The chaos had erupted, and suddenly, the truth that had felt so close was slipping through my fingers. The weight of the night pressed down on me, and I could barely register the woman in red stepping beside me, her hand reassuringly wrapping around mine. The music played on, a bittersweet reminder of a path paved with unresolved questions, shadows still lurking between what was known and what was yet to be revealed. And just like that, we were swept into the tide of confusion and panic, caught in a struggle that still demanded we confront the very heart of our familial ties. I looked back one last time, my father's eyes lost in the fog of chaos, his silhouette vanishing beneath the weight of the night. This was not the end, it was only the beginning, a discordant note vibrating through the soul of my saga, leaving me clutching strands of hope amidst the dark unknown that awaited. The air outside the club was thick with a chill that felt like a ghostly reminder of the past I was beginning to untangle. I breathed in the cold, sharp air, trying to steady the rapid flutter of my heart. The chaos behind me had faded, but the overwhelming sense of urgency remained, cutting deeper than before. The woman in the red dress squeezed my hand tighter as we stepped away from the still bellowing jazz that had spun our lives onto this precarious path. "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, but the genuine concern radiating from her filled the space between us with warmth that I glanced back over my shoulder, half expecting to see my father bolt through the doors. But the haunting echoes of his fear lingered in my mind instead. "What if he doesn't want to be found?" I murmured, losing myself momentarily in the swirling thoughts. What if this was all a mistake? "Sometimes, the chance to confront our past feels like a mistake," she asserted, her voice firm yet gentle. "But think about what you might find, even if it's hard. Even if it hurts." I closed my eyes, clenching my jaw against the truth of her words. How could I face the man who had been a specter in my life? The absence he had willingly left haunted my every relationship, whispered doubts into my every success. "Why do you care so much?" I blurted, a mix of gratitude and vulnerability coursing through me. "You don't even know me," she paused, her strikingly sincere gaze meeting mine with a depth that felt almost unsettling. "Because we're all searching for something. I've had my struggles too, everyone does. Maybe it's easier to help others than to confront your own shadows alone." Her honest admission caught me off guard. The flicker of understanding between us struck a chord, unearthing buried empathy. I nodded, absorbing her reassurance. "I want to know him," I finally admitted, my voice barely above a whisper as I felt the cracks of my own defenses beginning to show. "I just don't know if I'm ready for what that means." "Then take it one step at a time," she urged, her hand lingering on my arm, grounding me as a new wave of determination washed over me. "You don't have to bear this weight alone." The streets around the club were empty, echoes of laughter dying down like whispers lost in the wind. Yet, I could hear the fractured remnants of my past calling to me, taunting me about the unsettling truths that were long overdue to surface. There was a glimmer of hope hidden among those shadows, waiting to be uncovered. Suddenly, a loud horn blared nearby, breaking the delicate silence. We turned to see a car screeching to a halt across the street, and out of it stepped a figure completely out of place in the early morning gloom. It was a man, tall and imposing, his face shadowed by a hood. My stomach dropped as I felt a sudden sense of foreboding wash over me. "Who is that?" the woman in red asked, tensing beside me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something in that stranger's presence was entwined with my recent whirlwind. "I don't know," I whispered, my voice shaky as dread etched its way through my veins. "But I think he's looking for someone." Instinctively, I stepped back, pulling away from the unfolding scene, feeling the woman's hand slip from mine. The man began moving toward us, purpose etched in every stride, and I could feel the mounting pressure of adrenaline rising in meth approach of a storm barely held at BAY.is there a problem? He growled, his voice rough, a command rather than a question. My instinct screamed at me to retreat further. He's just looking for someone, the woman interjected bravely, though her voice trembled slightly. We just left the club before she could finish. The man stepped forward, eyes darting between us. You shouldn't be here. The club's not safe. A shiver darted down my spine. What do you mean? I demanded, the tremors of fear sharpening my voice as I felt lost in this web of tension. Things are happening, things you don't understand or want to be part of. His gaze focused on me, piercing and unyielding, as if he saw through the layers I had carefully woven around my heart and vulnerabilities. Who are you? I asked, trying to reclaim my composure, shaking off the uncertainty that gripped me. I am here to warn you. You need to leave now, he said, glancing back toward the club, where the sounds of confusion began again to bubble. They'll come looking for you. What do you know about me? I pressed, feeling the weight of my unanswered questions bearing down upon me like a tidal wave. What are you talking about? But before the man could respond, sirens wailed in the distance, a haunting sound wrapping around my resolve like vines binding me to dread. My heart raced as the truth curled cold against my skin. Whatever I was searching for, me father, my answers, my identity was draped in shadows far more dangerous than I had ever imagined. And as the figure turned to leave, his warning lingering like a storm cloud, I felt the weight of inevitability closing in, setting the stage for a confrontation I was far from prepared to face. The echoes of my past and the dangers looming ahead merged into a frantic cacophony, propelling me into an uncertain future where answers lurked but risked eluding me forever. The distant sound of sirens morphed into an unsettling soundtrack, underscoring the tempest brewing inside me. I stood frozen, the man in the hoodie fading into the shadows, his dire warning echoing in my mind, they'll come looking for you. Each word he had spoken clung to the air, weaving a web of dread I couldn't shake. Come on. The woman in the red dress grabbed my arm, her grip both steadying and urgent. We can't wait around. I barely nodded, the world around me beginning to blur as instinct kicked in. We hurried down the empty street, her footsteps resonating against the asphalt like a heartbeat, a reminder that we were undeniably alive, despite the turmoil. What do you think he meant? She asked, glancing back toward where we had just been, the neon glow of the club now a mere flicker in the distance. I could feel the weight of the unknown pressing down, making it hard to breathe. I have no idea, I admitted, my voice strained. But it can't be good. As we rounded a corner, the night air grew colder, and the gleaming street lamps cast long shadows that stretched like dark fingers towards us. I stole a sideways glance at her, trying to gauge if she was feeling the same growing sense of urgency. But she kept her focus straight ahead, her expression resolute. Listen, she finally said, her tone shifting. You can talk to him, if we find him again. Maybe he has answers. Who are you searching for, exactly? The question pulled at the threads of my heart, fraying them further. My father, I said through gritted teeth, the name feeling both foreign and familiar on my tongue. I thought it was just about knowing him, but now it feels like there is so much more at stake. She nodded, seemingly understanding the tangle of my emotions, yet I could see her concern lurking just beneath the surface. Is finding him worth the risk? I swallowed hard, tasted the metallic bitterness of uncertainty. It has to be, I whispered, even as the fear clawed at my insides. I need to understand why I was left behind, not just for myself but for the pieces of my life that never made sense. Her eyes softened. That's brave, you know. Whatever you find, just promise you won't try to face him alone. As we entered a dimly lit alley, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. I turned to follow her gaze and was met with a sight that sent chills racing up my spine. A group of men loomed near the mouth of the alley, their silhouettes threatening against the flickering light. They seemed out of context in the quiet of the night, a stark contrast to our earlier flirtation with music and dance. Maybe we should turn back, I suggested feebly, a tremor running through my voice. No, she said firmly, a fire igniting in her eyes. We can't go back now. Her bravery ignited a flicker of hope inside me, a reminder that even in fear, courage could become a lifeline. We veered to the side, moving cautiously along the edge of a darkened doorway, hoping to slip past unnoticed. I could hear snippets of their conversation, harsh and low, wrapped in tension. "You think he saw something?" One of the men spat, while another replied with a dismissive grunt that my pulse quickened. "They're talking about me," I breathed, my heart racing as if each beat was a countdown. "What did you get involved in, anyway?" She hissed, concern coloring her words. "That I don't know," I cried, slipping further into panic. "I just wanted answers." But it was too late. One of the men turned sharply in our direction, catching the faintest glimpse of movement. "I think I saw someone." His voice cut through the air like a knife. Adrenaline surged through me as I turned to run, my instincts propelling me forward, my life seemingly twisting in a faster, darker current. The woman in red was right at my side, her speed matching mine as we bolted through the alley, the sounds of heavy footsteps echoing behind us. We rounded a corner and stumbled into a small courtyard, the moon illuminating the chaotic tremor of the shadows around us. I could see her breath coming out in quick puffs, a mixture of fear and determination etched across her features. "What now?" she panted, searching for a way forward as our pursuers closed in. "I don't know," I cried, feeling the walls of my restraint crumbling under the weight of fear. "We have to find a place to hide." But the words barely left my mouth before the clang of metal hit my Ursa gate abruptly swinging shut just beyond the courtyard. The exit was blocked, leaving us to face the encroaching darkness and the men who seemed determined to pursue whatever it was we were entangled in. In that moment, a deep rush of despair washed over me, mingling with the flickering flame of hope, the hope that this woman, pulled into my chaos, might somehow help me decode the dread gnawing at my heart. But as the shadows drew closer, I couldn't shake the feeling that the answers I sought were pulling away from me, retreating into the folds of my haunted past. Then, from the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of something unexpected, the tall figure of the man from before, standing at the edge of the courtyard. His eyes met mine, stirring a flicker of recognition, as if in that one moment, we were connected by more than just the threads of fate. But the question loomed large in the air, heavy and unanswered: was he a savior or the architect of my doom? As I faced this tangled reality, the weight of uncertainty wrapped around me like chains, and the sirens in the distance faded into a whisper of destiny too daunting to reckon with. The man in the hoodie lingered at the periphery of my vision, appearing more like a specter than a person. I had no idea whether to feel relieved or terrified by his presence. "What are you doing here?" I gasped, misconstruing his role in the twisted narrative that had engulfed my life. "Why did you run?" he asked, his voice gravelly yet laced with a strange hint of concern. The pursuit I had felt moments before receded for a heartbeat, overtaken by curiosity. The men in the courtyard seemed to hesitate, caught off guard by his unexpected arrival. "He knows something," I shouted, my voice climbing an octave in desperation. But the man shook his head. "I can't help you if you keep running away from the truth." "Truth?" I scoffed, every syllable spitting out my anger as I clung to the facade of strength. "You mean the truth of my life being ripped apart because of some ancestral sin? Because of who my father is?" The woman at my side, always steady, breathed softly as if grounding me. "This isn't the right time for this discussion," but the man held his ground, seemingly unfazed by the building tension. "You're caught in a game bigger than you, but without the clarity of who you are, you'll remain lost. They're looking for you because of him." "Enough. I don't want to hear it. All I want is to get out," I screamed, heart pounding with resentment. Yet beneath the rebellion, a haunting curiosity gnawed at my thoughts, pushing me toward an understanding I was both terrified of and yearning for. "We can't stay here." The woman in the red dress eyed the encroaching figures with agile concern. "Let's find a way out and then you can yell at him all you want." The man moved toward the far side of the courtyard, and urgency flickered in my gut. "If you know how to escape, please." I didn't finish the sentence, because the moment I hesitated, the men regained their composure, heading for us with the purpose of predators closing in on their prey. "Now." The man urged, beckoning us to follow him. Without deliberation, we sprinted toward the doorway he had revealed, the weight of the world slipping yet again into the hands of fate. As we darted through the narrow passage, escaping into yet another labyrinth of streets, my heart thudded with the intensity of our flight. The adrenaline coursing through my veins demanded clarity, but the chaos of my emotions made that seem impossible. Was my father a key to understanding all of this, or just another doorway leading to more pain? The man turned to us, a shadow passing over his features. "We need to talk, somewhere safe." I interrupted incredulously. What does that even mean in a life like mine? Where exactly am I safe? And who are you to tell me anything about it? A friend, he said, his tone grave. A friend who knows what it means to lose everything. A flicker of vulnerability broke through his hardened exterior, and in that moment, I felt the slightest crack in my armor. For the first time, I noticed the scrapes and bruises he bore, a testament to battles unseen, a reflection of my own scars. I caught the woman's gaze, and her expression conveyed the silent question, were we ready to trust him? We found an obscure nook behind an abandoned building, hidden from sight. The man paced, barely allowing the silence to linger. You need to understand, your father, he paused, weighing words with caution. He abandoned you for a reason, one that ties back not just to family but to something much larger. The weight of those words hung between us, heavy with implications I couldn't yet wrap my mind around. Like what? I pressed, grounded by a mix of frustration and unyielding hope for clarity. He inhaled deeply, his eyes locking with mine. There are people who believe you possess something that revolves around who your father is. They'll stop at nothing to claim it, and that's why they're after you. What could I possibly have? I exclaimed, desperation tainting the fabric of my voice. In just me. Just a girl looking for her father. His expression softened, filled with a blend of sorrow and understanding. That's exactly what they want you to believe. You're not just a girl, you're a key, whether you realize it or not. Your father didn't abandon you, he made a choice to protect you. But now, that choice is forcing you into the open, but he never explained. I shouted, my voice breaking. If he wanted me safe, why didn't he tell me? The rawness of my emotions spilled over, filling the vacant space around us that had only come to foster anxiety. Before he could answer, the woman in red squeezed my hand. Listen, no matter why he left, we're in this together now. Well, find your father, but you have to promise to be careful. Her reassurance acted like a balm, momentarily soothing the jagged edges of my anxiety. Together, we faced the man, a trio united in our resolve, however fraught it might be. Suddenly, a piercing siren broke through the quieta sound of authority that propelled my heart back into a spiraling chaos. We need to move. I cried, panic threatening to take over, drowning out the remnants of hope that lingered. And then just before the world fractured under the weight of confusion and fear, a whisper of truth clawed at my consciousness, warning me of the chaos soon to descend. The man from the shadows turned to me, his eyes like abyssal pools. Before we go, there's something you need to know. The air hung thick with the promise of revelation, clenching around my chest, remnants of hope overshadowed by dread. The revelation could shatter what was left and reveal the very thing I had spent my entire life running from. With the siren wailing and time seeming to slip through my fingers like water, the man hesitated for just a moment, searching for the right words. I could feel my heart race not just from fear, but from the dread of what he was about to say. I leaned in, desperate for any shred of truth that could pierce through the veil of confusion enveloping my existence. There's a reason they want you, and it's not just because of your heritage, he finally said, his voice low and urgent, each word weighed down with gravity. Your father didn't just leave to protect you, he made sacrifices, and you are the one who holds his legacy. A legacy. The word sent a shiver through my spine. It felt both ominous and oddly intimate, like an echo of something familiar but distant. I had never truly considered that I could be a part of something bigger than myself, something that had been set in motion long before my birth. What do you mean? I pressed, although something inside me already grasped the gravity of the implications. His brow furrowed, and for a moment, I could see the tumult inside him, as though he battled demons of his own with every breath. You possess something, a gift, an ability. Your skin color, your differences, they're not limitations, but part of who you are meant to be. You were born into this world to stand against the hatred that others use to divide us. His words struck home. Was my existence just a symbol in a greater battle, one that was larger than my own pain? I stirred at the corners of understanding I had always shied away from. But how do I find this gift? How do I even begin to understand what it means? You've already begun, he said, urgency creeping back into his tone as we heard the distant footsteps of men closing in. Each time you resisted fear, each time you chose to fight back instead of retreating. Your emotions, your fury, your love, they are tools that guide you. You must learn to harness them. A new flicker of hope ignited within me, a small flame rising against the shadows of despair. I had resisted many tides, hadn't I? I hadn't backed down even when everything felt too heavy to bear, but the moment was brutally undercut as the echo of footsteps grew sharper, merging with the wails of the siren. No more time, the woman in red said, her voice steady and unwavering as she pulled me closer. We need to find shelter, regroup. We can't stay here any longer. The man held my gaze, steely determination in his eyes. Remember everything I said. You have a part to play in this, for your father, for yourself, for those like us who have been diminished. You cannot afford to forget. Just as we took a step towards what felt like safety, a loud crash reverberated nearby, one I recognized all too well. The men had found us. Panic flared temporarily inside me like a harpoon lodged just below the surface, but I swallowed it, hard. No more running. I would stand and face whatever darkness lay ahead. The woman in red stepped forward, ready to lead. This way, she urged, disappearing down a side alley cloaked in shadows, while I hesitated. Unsure if I was ready to accept what lay ahead, a sense of duty tugged at my heart. Could I truly navigate this abyss of uncertainty and fear? As we dashed into deeper shadows, the air was thick with urgency and a sense of awakening. We turned corners, dodged debris, and every footfall echoed my confusion. My mind filled with thoughts of my father, the specter of his absence looming ever larger. What choices had he made without me? What secrets had he kept, and was he truly deserving of my yearning for closure? But amid all the turmoil, a flicker of bright uncertainty whispered through my bones. The man had mentioned legacy, the potential that lay within me. Had if this was a path I could forge through my fear? What if I was more than just a victim in this narrative? Suddenly, I glanced back, and in that fleeting moment, I saw him reappear, his presence a shadow stitching the fragments of our group together. An unbidden thought burned in my chest. He felt like a guide, not just a stranger in a hoodie. What if our paths had crossed for a reason that extended beyond this moment? Wait. I called out, calling for him to pause with all the conviction I could gather. The urgency in his eyes shifted slightly, betraying just a hint of curiosity. We have to keep moving. He seemed half persuaded, half worried that I want to understand more. About my father, about me, I urged, the words spilling forth with an unrestrained hunger for truth. If I'm going to fight whatever is coming, I need to know it all. Before he could respond, his face melted into resignation. The world weaved itself tighter around us as the imminent clash of fate settled over us. You'll know soon. And with a swift movement, he pulled a small trinket from his pocket, holding it between us like a prayer. Take this. It may help you. His voice trembled slightly, a cracked corner of his otherwise steadfast demeanor. But whatever you do, don't let them take your spirit. Trust in yourself. His words held a gravity I didn't fully comprehend yet, but I nodded. With that, we took off again, the sirens blaring like some ominous symphony marking the start of our fight, and the final piece of the unsettling puzzle fell into place when I glanced down at the trinket in my hand, a smooth, worn stone, etched with symbols that seemed to hum in response to my touch. It thrummed with promise, and in that moment, I feared both what this journey would reveal about my father and myself, and what I would have to confront when the truth emerged in all its terrifying splendor. I looked back once more into the shadows, the weight of my heritage pressing down with the knowledge that the stakes were higher than I had ever imagined, the shadows whispering secrets of the past now quickly on my heels. The alley twisted and turned like a serpent, the walls closing in around us as we ran. Shadows pooled in the corners, and I could hear the distant shouts of pursuers behind us, a relentless reminder that time was not on our side. The weight of the stone pressed into my palm, an anchor grounding me in the chaos. Each step echoed my heart's frantic beat, resonating with the dissonance of fear and burgeoning hope. The woman in red led the way with unspoken confidence, her auburn hair whipping behind her like a banner of defiance. I focused on her strides, letting the rhythm guide me, but the thoughts remained hard to suppress. Every corner we turned seemed to offer a deeper labyrinth of uncertainty. My father's legacy felt like a distant star, shiny yet unreachable, pulling me into a universe I scarcely understood. That we reached a blocked-off street, littered with remnants of a hasty exit, chairs, crates, and the stench of burnt wood that lingered in the air like a ghost. "Here," the woman said, motioning towards a doorway half concealed by a pile of rubble. "Well, regroup inside." As we slipped into the vacant building, the air shifted. It felt colder, almost alive, whispering secrets through the cracks in the walls. I was still clutching the stone, wrestling with the implications of possessing something extraordinary. What did it mean for my future? What did it mean for my identity, my very essence reduced to a gift or a legacy? Inside, the building was dimly lit, the air musty and thick with neglect. A few tattered chairs and a table huddled together, forlorn remnants of a time when laughter might have cascaded through the room. I took a moment to absorb my surroundings, the desperation etched into every corner. In this moment of refuge, I felt a flicker of vulnerability spread across my chest, the truth dawning heavy upon me. I was not just running from pursuers, I was running from the systems that had anchored me in pain and rejection all my life. The man joined us inside, his form filling the doorway like an ominous sentinel. "We need to establish a plan," he said, sweeping his gaze over each of us as if measuring our resolve. My breath hitched, the familiar sense of belonging pitched into question. Would I be able to stand alongside them in this fight? What if I let them down? I clutched the stone tighter, feeling its rough edges press into my flesh, grounding my swirling thoughts. What do we do now? My voice broke slightly, but I urged myself forward. I want to understand my part in all of this. The man's eyes softened briefly, revealing a softness bereft of judgment. First, we listen and learn. Your ability is a tether to your lineage, and your emotions can aid in its awakening. But it will require trust not just in me, but in yourself. With each word, the flicker of hope ignited again. Yet an insistent voice deep inside me questioned why I should trust when others had let me down. Just as I was about to voice my thoughts, the building quaked with a muffled boom, not a distant sound, but a shattering reminder that we weren't alone. The woman snapped into action, eyes wide and intense. "They found us. We need to move now." The adrenaline surged through my veins, and I felt the weight of uncertainty push down hard. I couldn't leave without answers. "Wait," I implored, desperation creeping into my tone. "I have to know, what exactly am I supposed to become? What am I fighting for?" The man stepped closer, almost touching the threshold of my fear. "You fight for those who can't, who have suffered without a voice. You fight for love, for your father's memory." He believed in a world where pain could become strength, but before I could respond or process the enormity of his words, a crash reverberated through the hallway. The men were here, insatiable predators scenting their prey. A chill slithered down my spine as panic threatened to suffocate me. I could feel the ground trembling beneath my feet, a stark metaphor for the shifting foundations of my identity. We had to escape, but where? My thoughts spiraled out of control, swirling into darkness as the door rattled violently, the sound heralding our impending doom. "Follow me," the woman said, voice steady as she beckoned us behind a crumbling partition. As we huddled there, nestled in the dust and shadows, questions buzzed in my mind like angry bees. Was I truly meant to take this journey? Was it even mine to take? Then, cradled in that dark space, something changed. I felt the stone pulse in my palm, resonating with a warmth that flooded through me, igniting a connection to past generations. I realized then that the legacy I had thought of as a burden might instead be a lifeline, a bridge connecting me to my father and to my own bravery. "Hold on to it," the man urged, his eyes locking onto mine. You are part of something powerful. Just as I absorbed his words, an unforeseen burst of energy surged within me, enough to not merely survive but to stand my ground. I breathed in sharply, the air thick with the impending clash of fate, terrified but liberated. I was on the precipice of choosing my destiny, but then a new thought struck me as the door burst open, revealing figures silhouetted against the raging light outside. In that moment of utter chaos, a voice broke through my haze, one I never expected to harm me. Fathers. You are never alone. The words echoed in my mind as the shadows lunged forward, leaving everything in suspense, hanging in the balance of fate. That I clenched my fists around the stone, the whisper of my heritage beckoning me. This was just the beginning. The chaos burst into the room like a tidal wave, the figures advancing through the door while my heart clung desperately to the threads of hope and fear interwoven within me. The man's warnings wrapped around my thoughts like a prism. Me father, my legacy, all of it pulsing with the intensity of the moment. You are never alone. Those words ricocheted through my mind, a lifeline in the storm. That I stood among the whispers of dust and fading shadows, my instincts igniting. Without thinking, I pushed past the paralyzing fear, adrenaline fueling my feet as I stepped forward to confront the approaching figures. The chaos spiraled around me, a maelstrom of uncertainty and conviction, torn between the need for answers and the instinct to protect myself and those I had come to care about. Stop. My voice sliced through the noise, shaky but fierce, and all eyes turned toward me. I felt the warmth of the stone radiate in my palm, connecting me not just to the present but to the shadows of my past, the legacy my father had left behind, and now, maybe, the power it conferred on me. For a moment, the figures hesitated, those who had come to claim me, to chase the ghost of my lineage as if it were an object of desire wrapped in disdain. But I was no longer a mere vessel of someone else's decisions. I was alive, and my choices mattered. Who are you? I shouted defiantly, arms crossed like a shield. What do you want with us? One of the faceless figures moved forward, their features obscured by the harsh light pouring in behind them. Step aside, and we won't have to harm anyone, a low voice commanded, the confidence laced with menace. No. You don't get to dictate my life. The words tumbled out like a revelation as I felt the pulse of energy coursing through the stone, fortifying my stance. The woman in red stepped beside me, unwavering, drawing strength from my resolve, and it ignited something in the others too, a collective spirit awakened by the courage of the moment, but doubt flickered beneath the surface. What if they were right? What if stepping aside was my only choice? I brushed it away and grasped the stone tighter, feeling a surge of warmth wash over me, a voice gently whispering beneath the din of fear, urging me to claim my power. With a flick of my wrist, I held the stone high, feeling it shimmer under the light. The figures recoiled for just a moment, as if struck by something unseen, and I seized the opportunity. You have no power over me. My father protected me for a reason, and I will honor that. I could hear my voice, unwavering, fiercely, a pulse of life I hadn't recognized before surging through my veins. The man I feared, the one who had come to confront me, hesitated, eyes narrowing in a mix of confusion and intrigue. It doesn't have to be this way. Maybe it does, I shot back. Maybe confronting the truth is the only way I can begin to understand who I am. You can't keep running from your choices. With chaos bubbling around us, I pushed through the fear and uncertainty, focusing on the energy of the stone and the warmth of the assembly beside me. I locked eyes with the man. What are you afraid of? The tension thickened, the air crackling with energy as a hush fell over the room when it seemed that recognition flickered in his eyes. You don't know what you're messing with. You're not ready. No one determines my readiness, I replied, my voice steady. I am more than what you perceive. I am my father's legacy, and I will not allow you to write the narrative of my life. The sirens outside faded, but only momentarily, replaced by something new, hope simmering just below the surface. The shadows pressed inward, I could feel them lapping at my heels, their tendrils curling like smoke and whispers. Fleeting confusion morphed into clarity that laid bare the path ahead. Suddenly, the woman in red stepped forward beside me, her voice unwavering. We're offering you a choice. Join us or leave us be, but know this, you will not silence us. The figures shifted, their resolve faltering, their bravado crumbling under our combined strength. You have a legacy worth fighting for, the woman continued. And whatever happens here tonight will define us all. You will not take our light away. I felt the energy surge from the stone break free, wrapping around us like a protective cloak, a warm barrier against the cold intentions threatening to engulf us. Who was I but a girl torn between a past and a present, seeking to mend the frayed edges of a life lived in shadows? Yet now, I stood amidst shadows transformed, tension still hummed, yet it was no longer ominous, it felt electric, a convergence of fate molding itself into a new beginning. You have choices to make too, I called out, grounding myself. Choose the path of light. The figures hesitated, uncertainty slicing through their facades like sunlight breaking a winter dawn. Silence stretched, heavy with the possibility of change. Their silence mirrored the stirrings in my gut, the tentative realization that all of us were woven into this tapestry of fate-worn threads, new colors yet to be revealed. Then slowly, with a cautious nod, the man lifted his chin, eyes filled suddenly with the weight of memories, other histories that had wrung truth from pain. You have no idea what you're asking for, he murmured, a hint of respect glimmering in his tense expression. Then let me learn, I asserted, emboldened and alive. If there is power within my legacy, and there is, then it's time to embrace it. No more hiding, no more running. As the room filled with charged silence, a choice hung in the air, not just for me, but for everyone there. That night was no longer just a fight against darkness, it was a rebellion against the narrative of fear that had sought to silence us all, and in that moment of stillness, filled with fierce determination, I realized this wasn't just about my father, it was about rewriting my story, reclaiming my identity, and embracing the shadows that danced beside me. With that single thought grounding me, I stepped into the light, ready to confront whatever lay ahead, hand in hand with the powerful souls beside me. And I understood that perhaps the greatest legacy my father's and my own wasn't just in seeking the answers of the past, but in creating a future that embraced every hue of our shared humanity, together. The solidarity felt real, swelling like a chord echoing through the air, promising that I would never have to face the shadows alone. And as we stood on the precipice of transformation, a thrilling tenderness unfurled within me, a promise carried upon the wind, the closing notes of a ballad yet to be sung. I would soar, not merely as a shadow of my past but as a part of something greater, something definitive. I was no longer only my father's daughter, I was a beacon of change, ready to shine in the darkest of nights. The weight of the past began to lift, and with it, the dawn of a new journey awaited. In the silence of that chaotic moment, I grasped the truth, everything unfolded from here, a melody beginning to hum in the depth of my soul. I was ready to embrace the light.